on, loads of these things that are actually for sale, but I just don't advertise them as such, which is not a great business model.
Welcome to episode 2 of Where I Bike. Where I Bike is a weekly series where I travel round, visiting bike shops and meeting bike people all around the country. This week we head to Bristol to meet Wayne at Tailwind Cyclery. Wayne never planned to start a bike business before the pandemic. He was a full-time photographer, but in the space of a week, him and his wife were out of work. He moved his focus onto his other passion, which is cycling. He's a self-proclaimed bike geek and loves everything about retro bikes. Through mentoring and working with schools, he found himself repairing and fixing up bikes, and Tailwind Cyclery was born. So let's head over to Bristol and meet Wayne.
So I'm Wayne, Tailwind Cyclery, which is here. Come in, come and have a look. We'll call it a lounge. I call it a studio, but it's basically my happy place. So this is where it all kind of happens.
So this is like, it is a little bit like a cave walking in, like there's so much treasure like scattered round. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about like kind of like what you have hanging around, and like, is this all like stock, or is this like, are these ready to build for customers, or how does it all work?
I guess it's a total mixture. So there's some things are stock and to either be options for people for custom builds, retro builds. I have a few new cyclocross gravel frames kind of thing as well. We got like a Brother Kepler up there. We've got a Brother Mr. Wooden, which is my own. We've got a rune in a temple. But otherwise we've got things that I just love because they're sexy. So that's my personal Stumpjumper, which was handed down to me by the original owner who lived in the States and brought it home with him.
Oh, no way.
So he's now like, in his 80s, and he's had it since 81. So that's something that I'll never get rid of. The Maverick also is just, you look at the seat post and the stem, and it's just amazingly interesting. So like, it's there for that purpose. It's basically exactly the same as that. So it makes no logical sense for me to have two. However, that's what's happened. The salsa is for sale. And I guess initially when I first started, I would build a bike with a build in mind, and then, potentially list it for sale. I don't often list things for sale, which is my problem. So that's why I've got like the Salsa, the Trek, the Cannondale, the Decathlon, loads of these things that are actually for sale, but I just don't advertise them as such, which is not a great business model. And then the rest of the frames, they are all available as custom build options. So you've got a bunch hanging there. There's several in the storeroom, some hiding in my shed at home. I've probably got about 20 like 26-inch based retro frames, and they're all basically purchased because I like the look of them or can see their potential. The 3 tandem thing's excessive. It's a good thing, right?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk about the tandem. So you've got one up here. You did tell me briefly the story earlier on, but so you essentially decided you wanted one and you ended up with 3?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's bit about that.
Which is entirely normal because obviously no one needs a tandem. So I've now got 3. One was listed on Facebook, and it was exactly the make, model, color scheme that I wanted. So I'd agreed to buy it, and then an eBay notification came up about a week later as I was driving up north Stockport to go and get it. And it was 30 miles away, so it was a no-brainer to collect the second. But about a month previously, I'd met a guy, a local lovely guy who's well into his retro stuff, who had another tandem in a different paint scheme, which was higher grade model, probably not as interesting a paint scheme, but technically rarer and better. And he called me up a few weeks after getting these and offered me the bike, so I had to say yes. so I've got like the world's smallest shop and 3 tandems.
Nice.
Perfectly normal. Yeah.
So what's the story behind Tailwind Cycles? How did it all begin?
Total accident, like entire accident. I've always been a complete bike geek, hugely passionate about cycling and bikes and generally building bikes, and I always have done, kind of built my own. During the pandemic, I was previously a full-time photographer, and all of my kind of bookings literally died. My wife was made redundant. So in the same week we had like no income. And I started doing some mentoring work with young kids. So I was teaching young kids like photography skills, and all of a sudden there was these bikes that were neglected in the corner of this mentoring center. And I started doing little courses for young kids to, maintain, build, ride, have fun, just generally learn about bikes and maintenance. And then it just escalated. I started looking for like a workshop space so I didn't have to bring tools in and out of this place. And it just snowballed. So it was never meant to happen. But I'm really glad that it has, because I get to dick around with bikes and cameras, which is basically my 2 little playthings. So I'm a lucky man.
How do you balance affordability with quality when building refurbishing bikes?
I guess I will charge like for my labor time to give me like a living wage to ensure that obviously I can feed and clothe my kids and afford an IPA. But as everyone knows, like you can pick up a retro bike for not a great deal of money. So it's just a case of if you source an old bike in the first place that has, say, like a crankset that's of good condition and quality, and the frame is perfectly usable and the wheels, so you can kind of like strip a bike down to its component parts and then create value from that for yourself and the customer as well. And I generally try and get things to as close as trade price for people in terms of overall cost of the bike, is to ensure that they get a better build than they would get elsewhere. Because there's no question that if someone came to me and said, I've got, a certain budget and I want X, Y, and Z, I'll always be honest and say, well, I'm not going to be able to match Trek. Go to the Trek store if you want this. But if you're coming to me and you want a certain look or vibe, then it's just a case of budgeting where necessary. So certain things can be compromised, but style isn't one of them. And overall usability shouldn't be one, but also there's no need for super niche and blingy components if you don't need them. But if you can afford them, I'll happily facilitate that as well. So yeah.
If we can swing over here, so I've noticed you got some blingy parts over here.
Yeah.
So do you keep stock of all these stuff? Is this stuff that people have ordered in, or like how does this kind of corner work? Because it's hella blingy.
Yeah. So we've got the cabinet of bling, and some other crazy bits, and I guess like you make a slight investment with some parts that you've spec'd on certain builds, and you get a few customers through the door that want them. So I guess I have these as options for some builds, and they will go eventually, but obviously it's a nice focal point as well.
We talked a little bit about you do like kind of like lessons and kind of training and stuff. Like, yeah. What do you feel that? How do you feel like Tailwind sits in the community, and kind of what do you do to kind of make it a community?
I guess I am like community focused. It's important for me to do like the sessions with the kids. It's an SEN school mainly, and kids from backgrounds that they probably don't have a huge amount of support at home. So it's just, if you can motivate or encourage younger kids to kind of get their hands dirty and use a practical skill, it does mean that they've got a pathway into potentially not maybe a career in bikes or maintenance or the bike trade, but they could progress into another trade, carpentry or whatever else, because they have those practical transferable skills. And with like the retro builds and the recycling of components, I do have quite an immense collection in the parts bin, which I will give to people either at stupidly discounted cheap rates or completely donated. So if someone rocks in here and clearly doesn't have the cash to repair their bike, but the pedal's just fallen off and they've got a flat or their tyre is literally worn through to the carcass, I've got a bunch of things that I can just give to them. It's the same with the school sessions. I take a whole host of frames and components there for the kids to reuse and enjoy, and that's what I want people to do, is just actually enjoy their bike, because it's the most like affordable and kind of fun way of people getting about. It's that sense of freedom, and I think if I can just pass on a little bit of that passion or ability just to use one, then my job is very well done.
I noticed that there's a couple of treks knocking about. Have you got a thing? Like, is there a certain brand that you're like, oh, this is the one, or how do you feel about certain things? You know what I mean?
If I had to work, the Y bike was an impulse buy because it was offered locally for not a great deal of money.
Yeah.
It's an awful bike. Everyone knows it's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. However, look at it. It's just, at some point I'll build it and I will put it on the shelf somewhere to replace one of the things I should sell. And it's just something to look at, nostalgia, isn't it? Sure. But I guess if I was to choose a brand, especially retro stuff to work on, it would like GT, Cannondale, probably like the most iconic for me, and Alpine Stars and MS Racing, which is my geek fest kind of thing, which is the 1 year only precursor to Alpine Stars. Anyway, but Trek, I guess they made some cool bikes, had some great paint jobs, and I guess they always used standards that didn't change too much. So you've got quite a lot of flexibility in terms of building things with a standardized seat post, and they just made things well, but not particularly interesting for the most part.
Is there something in the shop that you would be annoyed if someone hadn't noticed it whilst they were here?
I guess maybe the GT Karakoram, if they are a retro nerd, so just a Tequila Sunrise paint job.
Yeah.
I think if someone was to walk like straight through the door and then glance up and not like look at it, that would hurt. I might usher them out the door.
Yeah. If you were going to build your dream bike, where does it sit in the world of retro and modern, or is it a mixture?
Oh, mate. Are you joking? It would have tubeless tyres that worked. It would have polished rims. Would it have? It'd probably have pull clampers on it. It would have some swept back Nitto bars or something similar. It would definitely have a well-worn Brook saddle. If I had to have one, technically it would need fenders and have to be super like practical, but I probably wouldn't do that. I love retro paint. I love the way it looks. I love the color scheme. However, I also love like raw metal. That's what I've done it to so many bikes. I think it started years ago with like stripping things back to raw, because I either love the paint or it makes me a little bit sick in my mouth. So I'd rather just not have it. And also then if it gets damaged, you don't cry about it. Always polish cranks, because why have painted? It wears off, it looks silly, you can always rebuff. Anything polished is good. And anything that stands the test of time and is mechanical. It's got to be good value, steel frame, and yeah, just look sexy. Tamwell tyres, and a bell. Who'd have thought it? Oh, and a basket. Shit.
Finally, what's the best bit of cycling advice you've ever given or received?
I guess what I say to everyone in terms of like advice is just not listen to the hype or industry or actually what other people say. So just make yourself happy. Do like ride the bike that makes you happy and what you need. Ride it with people that you want to ride with. Don't get into like niches and follow trends that actually you're struggling to be part of because you deem it to be important. Just make yourself happy with whatever form that takes. And I guess in terms of advice I was given, I was lucky enough to like have friends who like worked in the industry or owned shops or worked in shops, and I used to race with a bunch of cool people like when I was fast. And I guess it's just a case of you get all these kind of words of wisdom from people about bikes and bits and pieces, and it's just you take it all on and you then form into this whatever happened. So I guess, yeah, just listen to people you think are nice rather than the overall background noise, and make an effort to go ride with them in a time that suits you, in places that interest you. That's the gospel.
And that very nicely brings us to the end of episode 2 of Where I Bike. Massive thank you for Wayne to let me come out, say hi and check out his space. Where I Bike is a weekly series, so this is episode 2 in a row of 7, and to get a little idea of what's coming next week, here's a little glimpse. Tell us a bit about the company.
So it's called Velocious Cycle Couriers. We're a bit of a one-man band, and it's mainly just me, and then I get other folks on, you know, when I'm a bit busier or if I'm away and this sort of thing. So like, it's a lot more personable as well, because it's like because I run it and then I also do the deliveries. Like it's like people prefer to work with like a smaller company rather than these kind of big conglomerates and stuff.
So to keep up with the series and the channel, do feel free to subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free and it helps me out a bunch. And if you cannot wait till the next episode of Where I Bike or any of the other episodes and videos I post online, that one there's a particularly good one.